Coming, darling. Welcome home.
Oh,
my tough day.
Oh, my caseload today was enough to lay me low.
All right, let me have these things. Come on. And you, over to the couch.
My back,
Come on.
my feet, everything
Come on.
hurts.
Sit
Oh.
down. Now, first things first. Your slippers, madame.
Oh. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's going on?
Not yet. First, we have to make you nice and comfortable.
Oh.
All right. Now, how's that?
It's groovy. Now, would you mind telling me what's going on?
Special occasion. I came home early just to set it up.
A special occasion. For what?
Not yet. First, the pièce de résistance.
Oh.
Huh? One for you.
Thank you.
And one for me. Ready?
I'm not sure.
Well, brace yourself.
I'm braced. I'm braced.
A toast.
A toast. To what?
Marion, light of my life, heart of my heart. We are going to have a baby. Surprised, huh?
Surprise! Surprise! That's hardly the word for it. But then again, isn't that always the way?
What?
Well, I mean, the wife is always the last one to know.
Oh, Marion, I just found out today.
Oh, well, look, I'll tell you what. Why don't you sit down? How are you feeling?
No,
Oh,
honey,
please,
come on.
Stomach, head, strong desire for pickles and ice cream and pizza.
Be serious, Marion, please. This is important.
Look, all I know is that one of us would have to be pregnant, and I know I'm not.
But you are going to be.
You mean you're finally ready? Oh, then I'm willing.
Oh, darling.
Tom, I'm so happy. At last.
At last. Hey, this calls for another drink.
Oh, absolutely. A whole magnum of champagne. One of the big ones, a whole Jeroboam of champagne. Oh.
To the baby.
To the baby.
Now, all we have to decide is who's going to be the father.
Insight. Stories of modern man's search for meaning, freedom, love, insight.
We deal today with phenomena which stretch the imagination and boggle the mind, with things that seem beyond the realm of possibility. And yet scientists assure us that these possibilities will soon be realities, that in the very near future they will be able to do what is portrayed here. They will be able to do these things, but should they? Or more properly, should we? Should these new powers be used? If so, by whom? For what purpose? Under what conditions? And with what precautions? No one has certain answers to these problems. Only one thing is certain. The whole human family must begin to think deeply about these problems, and soon. These powers must be scrutinized, and the various options must be explored. For the whole future of the human family is at stake. We are dealing here not with science fiction, but with science fact, and we have very little time.
What is it, darling?
Would you mind repeating that?
I said now all we have to decide is who's going
gonna
to be the father.
That's what I thought you said.
Honey, Dr. Fishbeck and I have finally made the big breakthrough. Developed a successful technique for replacing maternal haploid nuclei with adult diploid nuclei in human ova.
Tom, you biologists may think that's just baby talk, but to us mere social workers, it is pure Greek.
Cloning, Marion, cloning, the thing Dr. Fishbeck and I have been working on for 3 years.
Oh.
I mean, now we can have whatever we want.
Well, I prefer children.
Oh, come on, be serious, Marion. I mean a boy or girl.
Yeah, I know.
Well, honey, what's the matter? I thought you'd be all excited.
Well, it's one thing to be able to clone a child, but another thing to Well, to have it personally.
Marion, you knew I submitted your name and medical records to the Institute's Committee on Cloning.
Yeah, I know, but I just never thought I'd be chosen.
Well, honey, you were. Darling, don't you understand? Now we can pick the father from whomever we want.
I thought I already had.
Oh, darling, that's very sweet and very flattering. But, sweetheart, don't you understand? This is an epoch-making opportunity. I mean, it's like landing the first man on the moon.
Tom, I'm not interested in landing the first man on the moon. I love you, and I want your child. And frankly, I think that's pretty epic-making, too.
But, darling, consider the honor. I mean, the committee has chosen us, chosen you to be the first mother of a clone. Now, why, Dr. Fishbeck and I might even win the Nobel Prize. You could be named Mother of the Year, of the decade, of the century.
Tom, I'm talking about our child, not a scientific award or an advancement.
Honey, just think of what it would do for my career. I mean, for us.
If it means that much to you, then I'll go along.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful.
Ah.
Hey, let's go right over and tell your mother and father, huh? They've been wanting us to have children for years.
I wonder how Dad will feel about having a clone in the family.
Well, look who's here. Come in, come in, come in. Abby, it's Marion.
And Tom.
And him, too.
Oh, what a delightful surprise, darling. Hello.
And we have another one for you.
You never fail to surprise me, young man.
You tell him, Marion.
I'm going to have a baby.
You think you're having...
Oh,
Well, I'd say it's just about time. That is absolutely marvelous. Now, this calls for a drink. Well, what'll you have, Marion?
I think some sherry, Dad, please.
Good, good. Abby?
bourbon and Coca-Cola.
Good.
Oh, isn't this exciting, Basil? We're going to be grandparents at last.
Yes, young man, I was beginning to wonder about you.
What?
Daddy, you know we were just waiting until we were ready.
Yes, yes, that's what you said, but I was wondering if the young doctor here was willing or able.
Well, why didn't you just ask your daughter about my sexuality?
Please, please, if you don't mind, there's some things I wouldn't even discuss with my own wife.
When is it due, dear?
We don't know yet.
What do you mean?
We don't even know who the father's going to be yet.
That's right.
I beg your pardon.
An historic landmark, Mr. Bonnet. For the first time in history, Marion and I will be able to decide whether our child will be a boy, a girl, tall, short, red-headed, blonde.
Look here, young man, have you gone completely bananas?
Tom, why don't you start from the beginning?
Right. Well, first of all, our baby will be conceived outside of the womb.
I don't understand, Tom. Just where were you planning to conceive it?
In a test tube, Mom.
In a test tube?
We're going to fertilize Marion's ovum without us having sexual intercourse.
Please, do I have to remind you again? What's your language? There are ladies present.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Mr. Bono, Marion already knows the facts of life, and I'm sure Mrs. Bono didn't conceive her single-handedly.
Oh, no, it wasn't that way at all, Tom. Basil and I had a wonderful...
Please, Abby, I don't think we have to go into all the lurid details surrounding Marion's conception. It just happens that I think that sex is something you do, not talk about.
Dad, how is Tom supposed to tell you about the baby if he can't talk about sex?
That's right, Basil. After all, you can't make bricks without straw.
Yes, certainly you can't make... Well, I suppose we'll have to have an X-rated explanation just this one time. Now, let me get this straight. You propose, is this correct, to have Marion conceive without...
That's right. Without. No sex. Now, that at least should make you happy.
Well, I appreciate no end your concern with my happiness, Thomas. But how do you expect to achieve this non-mating miracle?
At the right hormonal moment, a laparoscope, a needle-like instrument, will be inserted through Marion's navel into her egg sac, and one of her ova will be extracted. Then, using a micropipette, we will remove the nucleus of the egg, replace it with the nucleus of a previously selected cell, and voila! The egg is fertilized. Then,
Well, just if it's not too much trouble, would you mind going back to just before the voila and answer a simple question from just a simple layman, a civilian?
of course.
I was always under the impression that in order to achieve these things, that it was absolutely essential that you used a man's seed.
No, Mr. Bono. You see, to fertilize an egg, all it requires is that its nucleus contain 46 chromosomes. Well, you see, ordinarily it only has 23. So when the sperm and the ovum combine under normal circumstances, the nucleus of the ovum acquires the sperm's 23 chromosomes, making a total of 46 chromosomes that make a complete, viable human cell that will continue to grow, to divide, to multiply until the 30,000 million cells that compose the human body are produced.
That many? No wonder it takes so long to have a baby.
The point is, we've found that the nucleus in each and every adult cell in the human body contains 46 chromosomes, the exact genetic information required for making a complete human being.
You see, Dad, when Tom replaces the 23 chromosome nucleus in my ova with a 46 chromosome nucleus found in the adult cell, my egg will be fertilized just as if Tom and I...
Yes. I get the picture. I get the picture. But I must say, it is not the same thing.
No, in certain ways it's not. Now, the baby won't have Marion's genes or mine. It will have those of the person we select. So, we can decide on the exact genetic composition of our baby with all that implies.
Don't you see? We'll be the first parents of a clone.
A what?
A clone?
A clone. That's a term used to describe a person produced by this process.
Oh.
I don't understand, Tom. What happens to the egg after it's fertilized? I mean, I never heard of a pregnant test tube.
No, hardly. Once the egg is fertilized, then it's nurtured along. It continues to grow, to multiply, until the embryo reaches the point where it can be successfully implanted in Marion's uterus, and 9 months later...
Voila!
Right!
Well, wait, just 1 minute. All that business that happens first, that takes place in the test tube. I mean, without...
That's right.
And you call that a breakthrough, do you?
No question.
Well, I consider it a breakdown. A complete breakdown in human relations. It's something I would much rather do myself.
Oh, I think your father's right, dear. For certain things, the old-fashioned ways are best.
And I'm glad we agree about one thing.
Oh, I always agree with you, Basil, even when I don't. Besides, I think if God would have wanted it done that way, he would have given us test tubes instead of...
Abby, what is all this falderall about not knowing who the father is?
Well, because any cell from anybody can fertilize Marion's egg, we can choose anyone to be, in effect, the father of our baby.
Well, so that means that I don't know who or what our grandchild will be.
Well, not yet. We haven't had time to sit down and decide who we want the father to be.
However it works out, it's just bound to be an improvement.
Daddy.
Basil.
You know what I think? I think you've just discovered a new way to commit old-fashioned adultery, that's what I think. Instead of throwing keys into the middle of the floor, you're putting a strange man's genes right in the middle of your wife's egg.
That's a narrow and selfish way of looking at it. Mr. Banu, just consider the good cloning can do.
What good?
Well, for example, just think. Think of what it would mean to the world if it could have a continuing supply of Abraham Lincolns, Albert Einsteins, William Shakespeare's, or armies of George Patton, Napoleon Bonaparte's.
Oh, please, don't tell me now that you intend to raise the dead.
The point is, Mr. Bono, the cloned child will be an exact genetic duplicate of the donor. And so the clone of a genius will have the potential of being a genius.
All right, Tom. Just suppose that you could do all that. But the point is, should you? Now, why in the world don't you two want to be the parents of your own child in the normal way?
Because we want our child to be better than we are, Dad.
Right. To have all the advantages and none of our disadvantages.
I don't know. It sounds to me like what you're trying to say is that you don't like yourselves.
No, Mrs. Bono, it's not that. We want the best blueprint available for our child so that we can program as perfect a child as possible, both mentally and physically.
Program? Sound to me like you're talking about computers instead of human beings. You know, I think that you are interfering with the divine plan.
It's not interfering, Mr. Banu. It's collaborating with God.
Collaborating. When it comes to the creation of life, God does not need or want our help, and I'm sure about that.
Well, I'm not. He hasn't confided in me lately.
Maybe you've been too busy juggling eggs to listen, Thomas.
As I remember Genesis, Mr. Banu, God told man to take possession of the earth, to subdue it, and exercise dominion over it.
That is right. Look at the mess that man's made out of it. Pollution, the atom bomb, you name it.
Of course. But just supposing a child were given the best genetic blueprints available in the world. Just consider what a great potential for good that child would have.
Well, I must say that does open quite a range of very interesting speculations, doesn't it? I mean, a whole basketball team of Kareem Jabbars, a swimming pool full of Mark Spitzes or Raquel Welches.
And Cary Grants and Burt Reynoldses.
Oh, legions of Madame Curies and Pearl Bucks, Gloria Steinems, oh, and Eleanor Roosevelt.
That's right, that's right. No offense intended, Thomas, but anyone can tell from just looking at you that you wouldn't want to be the father's child. But if you could get someone, well, someone a little bit more like myself, another Basil Banu, if such a thing were possible, it would be...
No offense intended, Mr. Banu, but we're just shooting for a higher stage of evolution.
I beg your pardon.
Daddy, what Tom means is that we've both decided to, well, to bypass our own genes in favor of a bona fide genius.
And even you have to admit, Mr. Banu, you're no genius.
Now, look here, young
Daddy,
man. I don't think...
we must get going. Haven't even had dinner yet, have we, darling? Come on. Bye-bye.
Goodbye,
Goodbye,
darling.
We'll let you know if we decide on it.
Oh, good. I love surprises.
Well, I hope they don't surprise us too much.
What do you mean, Basil?
I'm a little bit worried about the kind of a genius that bubble-headed son-in-law of ours is going to pick out to fertilize our daughter.
Basil?
Yes?
What if he picks a Democrat?
I didn't know that freedom of choice could be such a drag.
All right, honey. How about a great scientist, Dr. Jonas Salk?
Well, how about a great stateswoman like Golda Meir?
Marion, we already agreed to narrow the field. The boys first, the girls second. Now why open it up again?
I'm having second thoughts.
All right, all right. I don't ever want to be accused of being a male chauvinist, so if it's a girl you want first, girl it'll be.
No, no, no. Not about that. About the whole thing.
What about it?
Well, I don't know. Tom, maybe my folks were right. Maybe instead of trying to bypass the evolution of sexual reproduction, we should live dangerously. I mean, let nature take its course. Cooperate with it. After all, Tommy, the old way provides excitement and infinite variety of possibilities.
I know, but nature makes mistakes, too.
Oh, but it'll be our own.
Marion, we agreed.
Tom, how are you going to feel about the baby after it's born? I mean, it's another man's son.
Wait a minute. You're going to carry the baby. You'll give birth to it. He'll be yours, so he'll be ours.
But think of what we could lose if
Honey,
we...
think of what we'll gain.
Oh. What's that?
It's a list the Committee on Cloning sent home today. You see, honey, we've been taking too long.
The committee? To hell with the committee!
Marion.
It's my body. I'm gonna be carrying that baby around. I want to decide. I'm not just some old spawning ground, not a field that's waiting to be seeded and plowed for some bumper crop. And if you and that committee don't like it, you can call in your second string.
All right. Now, look. Nobody said you couldn't make a decision. It's just the committee thought this would help speed things up. I mean, after all, who knows what the competition's up to? Honey, these are just suggestions. And remember, Ben and Sarah Tuckner also volunteered to have the clone.
Right,
We're going to have to make up our minds.
All right. Who do they suggest? Or better yet, who do you prefer?
Hey, look at this. I mean, their number one choice. I mean, he's Mr. Right for me. Roger Drummond. All-American in football. Olympic gold medalist in the decathlon. Rhodes Scholar. Lawyer. Judge. Diplomat. Winner of the Nobel Prize. And now, Justice of the Supreme Court. Where are you going?
Pack.
What for?
We're going to Washington, D.C.
Ah, Dr. Stockwell. How do you do?
Mr. Justice, thank you. My wife, Marion.
How do you do?
This is a great honor, Mr. Justice.
Well, thank you very much. Won't you sit down? Make yourself comfortable?
Thank you. It was good of you to see us right away.
Well, frankly, Doctor, I couldn't resist it, especially after Dr. Fishbeck called me and explained your mission. And then I read through this overwhelming presentation of yours. I must confess, I knew very little about cloning up to now, a few magazine articles, and I really didn't know how far you scientific fellas had come. This is absolutely fascinating, and I might say a little bit incredible.
Not anymore, sir. It's here, a practical reality. And after an exhaustive search, we've selected you to be the first person in history to be cloned.
Well...
Have you made up your mind yet, sir?
Well, no, Mrs. Stockwell, I really haven't. I am flattered, of course, but at this moment, I'm not at all sure that anyone should be cloned.
But, sir, this is a milestone in man's development, a quantum leap forward.
No, but in some circles, it might be considered a quantum leap backward.
I don't understand.
Well, Doctor, non-sexual reproduction is a reversion to the simplest forms of life, isn't it? I mean, the amoeba.
Only in the limited sense, sir. You see, cloning will enable man to perfect himself.
Ah, yes, but that depends on your definition of perfection. Now, some people think that perfection consists of communing with nature, cooperating with nature, surrendering to its mysteries.
That's what my mother says.
Your mother may very well be right, young lady, but there are others, scientists, and I say this with all due respect, Doctor, who feel that they can improve on nature, control it, program its mysteries, as it were.
But surely you can't question the use of genetic manipulation for the removal of congenital defects, mongolism?
No, not at all.
Then why shouldn't we go a step further, program the type of human being we want?
Huh? But who decides? Who is going to program who? That's a vital question, Doc.
Excuse me, but there is a committee on cloning.
Yes, there are always committees. But who selects or elects the committee? Now, committees of programmers may be very scientifically advanced, but do we have the wisdom? Do we have the humility? Do we have the perspective to use this newfound power well? And misuse, Doctor, you know the consequences could be monstrous.
Sir, I have more faith in man and his wisdom.
Well, I admire your faith, Doctor, but both of us have to admit that through the course of history, man has shown a devilish tendency to play God. Now, genetic manipulation may very well be the latest manifestation of this fatal weakness, this fatal pride.
Mr. Justice, I'm afraid I can't agree with that. Certainly man is subject to pride, and he may misuse power and try to play God, but I've been reading Teilhard de Chardin lately. He was a first-rate scientist. He offers us another alternative. That man can surrender himself to God, let God permeate his being, and become a vehicle through which God continues his creative work in time and space.
Yeah, that's just fine, Dr. Hart. Let me try this. God wills our humanization, true? And man is humanized through pain, anxiety, by taking risks. Now, wouldn't genetic manipulation take the uncertainty out of life?
No, sir, that the risks would still be there. Whatever genetic constellation an individual is born with, that only provides the basic platform on which he lives, but the direction of that life, who and what he becomes on that platform, that's up to his individual freedom.
You make your case very well, Dr. Stockwell. But then with all his free will, what happens to that individual child? I mean emotionally, psychologically, if he goes through life knowing that his existence came not from love, but from programming.
Wait a minute. That child would be loved. I'd carry him for 9 months and deliver him, and he'd be raised in our home with love.
She's a very convincing young lady. And you know something? You've touched on the deepest desire of my heart. The one regret of my life is that I've never had children of my own. I've always wanted to have a son to carry on the family line.
Now you can, sir.
Yes. A positive answer, you might say. A natural desire for progeny, heretofore impossible, now made possible by scientific advance.
Then you agree?
Madam, I must say I have never been propositioned by a prettier lady. All right, Doctor. Now, when would you want to do all this?
The sooner the better, sir. We can set it up anytime.
No guarantee my clone would work out, you know.
No, but with your genes, I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Doctor, you perhaps know this better than most. A clone is essentially an identical twin, eh?
Yeah.
And they have identical genes, too, but often very different developments.
Well, everything in life's a little dicey, sir, but I'd say the odds in our favor are astronomical.
All right. Johnny! Johnny, could you come in here for a minute, please? Doctor, I want you to meet my brother, John. Johnny, say hello to Dr. Stockwell. Oh, Doctor. Johnny takes care of the garden around here. Don't you, Johnny? Johnny likes flowers. Johnny likes flowers. All right, Johnny, it's almost lunchtime. Why don't you go to the kitchen, and I'll be there in just a minute. Lunchtime. They think Mother was exposed to German measles during her early pregnancy. We've never been quite sure what happened, but genetically, John is my identical twin. Life is a dice game, Doctor. Excuse me.
I think we should let Ben and Sarah Tugner usher in the age of Superman. I guess no matter how much you try and program it, that life is really a dice game. Let's go home and use our own dice.
Insight is a production of the Paulist Fathers, a group of Catholic priests who seek to share the good news of God's love with all their brothers and sisters in the human family.